to the second and third part of this video, I take on a different approach in terms of those people who have, come out with allegations of in questioning my methodology or whatever. But people, the Ekegusii, believe that we came along the Nile from Egypt, and the word they say is Misri. Misri is the Hebrew name for Egypt. The Ekegusii called themselves Hebrews. And how do you become an Hebrew? God gave Abraham the Abrahamic covenant. The condition of the covenant was to get all the adults in the house. The condition was to get all the adults and the children of the house, male, every male that was in that house, to get circumcised. And by that they became Hebrew. Hebrew in my language, I-B-U-R-U. So I'm not staking these claims just out of the air. I'm staking claims based on what my people have said. And we use the Hebrew name for Egypt, Misri. Tracing the relationship between Mdu Ntrr, Hebrew, and Ekegusii, I try to find the genetic relationship by using the association of the etymology and core vocabulary. So it's not only the fact that they sound alike, but also what is the meaning behind it? What is the etymological root behind this word? So if a word in Swahili is Mtaro, a Kanor, and in the ancient Egyptian language it's Ntaro with an N, surely they're so alike, the etymologies are alike. And that's what linguists do in grouping up languages. So I'm just using simple etymology and core vocabulary to group them up together. So my question is to you, who don't even know that the Bible was written by black people. How can you possibly spread a lie that the Bible was invented by the white man to colonize us? Yes, the Bible was an instrument of colonialism, but that does not necessarily mean that the Bible is authentic to the white man. I mean, think about it. Where did rebellion start? It didn't start on earth, it started in heaven. You can use whatever you want to use to colonize something. You can use anything you want to use, as long as you can get that person to be subject under you. So just because the white man used the Bible to colonize us doesn't make the Bible his book or his authentic creation. And those who spread that lie are crazy because they haven't taken the time to read the Bible, and you're reading all these books by all these Hindu writers and all these Aristotle, but you don't know what the Bible says about the heritage of the dark man in the Bible. Really? Only use it as a religious text, but also as a historical text. I also use this video to challenge those, because it's a predominantly Western dominated, racist white supremacy dominated Western knowledge type of thing. So even as I come forth with this and I address this issue, because very many Africans have talked about this and very many Africans have complained about it. Now remember, it may come off like I'm attacking the branch of Afrocentrics or the African American community that is associating, or taking on that side of Mdu Ntrr. That's not what I'm doing. I'm attacking those who seem to take on to the tune and dance of their masters and sideline as Africans. You don't have to have a degree to comment about a Bantu language. If you don't need a scientific formula. If it sounds feasible, listen to it. I feel that there needs to be an accommodative approach in how this thing is handled. I mean, look at the red tape that it takes to learn Near Eastern studies. It's crazy. You have to learn German, or you have to learn French, a modern language, and an ancient language to learn Mdu Ntrr. Okay? What? That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Since when do you have to learn Maragoli, or since when do you have to learn what do Dravidians speak, to learn English? Since when? That's crazy. Look at how it's so Western dominated. I have to learn German to speak a Bantu language. Mdu Ntrr is a Bantu language. But so in the second part of this video, I speak about, or I show you examples of, so even as we speak, I show you examples of ancient Hebrew in the Ekegusii language and Mdu Ntrr in the Ekegusii language, or ancient Egyptian, in the Ekegusii language. And then on the third part, I will show you how the Hebrew alphabet is derived out of the Bantu group of languages, and I'm going to use Ekegusii because Ekegusii doesn't exist as a vacuum, on its own. It's a reflection of other Bantu languages. So I didn't discover the language. I didn't discover Ekegusii. It has been there. It's been there. One thing that drives me crazy about, and I found this attitude not only with the white scholars, who of course are very elitist in their making, but also with Afrocentrics, is that obnoxious, belligerent attitude of know-it-all, thinking they know Africans because they've written it down and dissected it in a book. Now you think you own us? You can't hold a cloud and pin it down. You can't dissect essence. You just can't do it. So you have people here, you have scholars all walking around, you can't even pronounce the word Mdu Ntrr. It's Mdu Ntrr, and they think they have the nerve to look down on you with their Mdu Ntrr, Umojana Undogo. It's just this belligerent Western great white delusion that's present not only with elitist white scholars but also with the Afrocentric community. And I'm talking about the arrogant ones that don't accommodate the Africans, the African voice, because they're so worried about individualism and selling their books. They think that because they grew up in a Nimrodian urban setting, then they're more civilized than me, an African who grew up in a rural setting drinking cow milk every day. Because they drank powdered milk and boxed eggs. They think now they're the bomb diggity and they're experts in African knowledge. Are you kidding me? Do you know how that sounds? That's an oxymoron. You're drinking powdered milk and you think you can tell me about a shepherd king population? Can you even milk a cow? Do you know what to do or how to milk a cow? How can you tell me about a shepherd king? How can you tell me about what it is to be African? If you want to talk to me about, let's talk about infamil, the ingredients for infamil. Let's talk about that. Now, this is for you powdered milk scholars who seem to just carry on that dance that is so neo-colonialist and oppressive for those of us who are the real Africans, okay? Now, here, as we proceed on, here is another comparison of the English languages, the English language, and the Bantu group of languages in terms of its lexical terms. Now, Bantu languages, the African languages, Bantu especially, and Mdu Ntrr and the Hebrew language are all agglutinative languages, meaning that, let me just go ahead and read it from here and then I can explain that. Now, this is definitely a book I'd recommend, and this is by Sharman, and this is Linguistic Ties Between Ancient Egyptian and Bantu, and covering symbiotic affinities and relationships in vocabulary. Now, so I'll read just a paragraph for you, and you can have an idea of the difference between, the English language, which is seen as an isolative language, and Mdu Ntrr and the Bantu languages. I just added the Hebrew part because it is an agglutinative language as well. So anyway, as has already been stated, the ancient Egyptian language is an agglutinative language, as instances of agglutination in lexical terms resemble features which are similar in Bantu languages, such as prefixes and suffixes attached to verbal or non-verbal lexical terms. Agglutinating languages are those in which grammatical forms are expressed by the combination or adhesion of formative elements to the various roots. These formative elements always being recognizable as independent words detachable from the root and capable of being affixed to other roots or even to stand alone in a sentence. It's just like, for example, the word, like I was talking about this in the Ekegusii Lost Tribe of Israel. The word for Africa is an agglutination of the word Afra and Rika. Now, Afra means clay, loam, or soil, and it's produced from the Hebrew word Afra and the Ekegusii word Ebara. See that? And Rika means enlightenment or to be educated or to be illuminated. So Africa was known as the brown land of illumination. And Afra was actually a term used in Greece to refer to a prosperous person or a black woman. So Africa is not just a term derived by Afrikaners. I think that's stupid, because Afrikaners is possessive, it's Latin possessive of Africa. And I think an old acquaintance once told me, I'm not really sure, someone told me that Afrikaners may have had a brother called Ekegusii. There's rumors about that. Now, there's no way that Afrikaners would have been able to withhold such a large name as Africa, because the root derivations of Africa are African, but I will talk about them later. And that's an example of an agglutination. Now, let's proceed. However, although the English language is not considered to be an agglutinative language, the word blackbird, which consists of black and bird, derives a single word, namely the common blackbird. Another example is the word godlike, which means like God. Both words God and like are stable and independent words which are able to stand on their own. On the other hand, godly has the ending ly and is not able to stand on its own. These examples show that the English language exhibits instances of agglutination. Likewise, in Kizulu language, the word let's put that. Yeah. Considering that African language is agglutinative and Africa gave the world its language, I think wouldn't it be common sense that if there was ever a proto-pre-Babel language, then it would be one that would probably work like Mdu Ntrr or the Bantu languages, especially the East African languages. Now, scientists have also theorized about the idea of being a Pangea, or a planet, a super planet before the planets broke off. Okay, that's a theory that's pretty acceptable. However, the Bible also talks about there being the existence of a super language, a proto-pre-Babel language in the book of Genesis. And it's Genesis 11:6-7. And this is what the verse is. Now the whole world had one language and a common speech. Genesis 11:1. And then we move over to Genesis 11:6-7. The Lord says, if as one people speaking the same language they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other. Okay? Now, if the idea of a super language or a proto-pre-Babel language is now, if the idea of there have been a supercontinent or Pangea is plausible or feasible, in terms of theoretical terms, then the idea of having a super language, just like the Bible proposes, and I use the Bible also as a historical document, is not so far-fetched. So if you had Pangea, I don't see why the concept of a super language is so out of this world. And I read an article in Life Science that says that the first language could have evolved from East Africa, and could have been, the mother that gave birth to all these languages. Okay, Now, but I look at language when it was initially a super language. I look at it, and the perfect example is I use a Rubik's Cube. Now, a Rubik's Cube has it, when you buy it, it has all its colors in place, right? Now, let's think about this. God says, calm down, let us go and confuse their language. And I remember, I did this exercise with my daughter, and I told her, if I give you a Rubik's Cube, I did this experiment with my daughter, and I asked her, if I gave you a Rubik's Cube and I told you to confuse the colors for me, what do you think I'm telling you? And she said, well, it just means jumble them up. And I was like, yeah. I was like, okay. I said, that's exactly what I've been thinking. Now, if you take a Rubik's Cube and jumble it up, and the reason why I use a Rubik's is to represent the 4 corners of the earth. Okay, the earth can be a circle or a square depending on how you look at it. So now, if then God looks at this in this Rubik's Cube and says, this is one language, so y'all, have decided to do all this evil, so he says, let me confuse them. And he shuffles up the language like you would a Rubik's, right? It becomes jumbled up and becomes this whole mess. But this is the thing. For example, pick out the color yellow or red. Yellow or red, even though seems so confused and distorted now, there was a continuum or a locus upon which you can trace the movement of that yellow, or you can return it back to order in that sense. Somehow it goes there if all you were doing purely is just using the Rubik's Cube, right? Now, I also see language like that. Now, I take words and I refuse to limit myself to geographical boundaries, because if God is shuffling a language, he's shuffling it all around the 4 corners. You see what I'm saying? So, I'll take a language, I'll take a word from the Maasai language, I'll take a word from, Latin or Czechoslovakia. If they sound the same, I'm going to take them and compare them. Because I believe that there's a continuum or a locus upon which this language was shuffled. We don't know what the formula was. Maybe it was a matrix system. I don't know what the formula was. However, the only things that can really help us trace are core vocabularies. And I use that even in trying to argue that the Ekegusii are a lost tribe of Israel. And I will paste the link over there so you can go see if you need to see it. So I do believe that it's an ambitious project, but I don't think that it's something that's not feasible. And I think that if you take commonalities like core vocabulary, and I refuse to let geographical boundary limit me, I do believe it will be the first step in finding a proto-pre-Babel language. Based on the letter, I sent this scholar, and he told me that, an African American scholar I sent to a letter, and he told me, I can't really help you because you believe in the Bible, and then he tells me he's a symptomatic thinker, and he says the Bible was written by white men to colonize you. Of course, like I would expect of many Afrocentrics who seem to associate Africanness with, a different kind of Kemetism. There was 2 schools of thought. Okay, there were those who believed in the worship of ancestors and idols, and I would say more of the Hamites. And the Shemas or the Shemites or the Semis were those who believed in the worship of one God. But eventually they all ended up doing that practice. They all ended up influencing each other. Anyway, but this scholar tells me, well, the Bible is written by a black man anyway. I stepped back and looked and said, okay, if this man calls himself a scholar, having written all these books, having, researched all this, and the Bible is the one thing you didn't bother to research and see, who just use simple stylistic devices and find out who the persona of the Bible is. And I'm going to do that. This is dedicated to all those Afrocentric scholars who told me that, I'm dreaming the Bible, was made up by the white man. But I don't believe that the Bible, if the white Bible was written by a white man, something's wrong. Okay, and I'll show you how. Okay, let's look at the book of Lamentations 5:10. Okay, and I'll give you various versions of it. Okay, so our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. That's King James black. Okay, and remember I told you that the African definition of color will range, dark brown like this here. This is black. Okay, so a burnt oven can range from this kind of brown to really black. Okay, our skin is black like an oven because of the burning of the heat of the famine. ASV, American Standard Version. Our skin is black like an oven because of the burning heat of famine. English Revised Version. Our skin was black like an oven because of the terrible famine. Webster's Bible Translation. Our skin was burnt as an oven by the reason of the violence of the famine. It's Dory Rain's Bible. I think I butchered that name. But this is Lamentations 5. Okay. Now, if you have a famine and people's skin is turning black or burnt like an oven, what color do you think that is? And if this were white people who wrote that their skin became black as ovens, do white people's skin turn black as an oven during famine? Okay, I'm going to show you some pictures and I'm going to ask you to compare and tell me what you think, okay? Right there. Okay, so I'll give you these two pictures to compare. Now, it's really sad. The picture on the left is really sad. Is a Pulitzer award-winning picture by Kevin Carter. The thing is, it's so sad how she's lying over there and there's a vulture waiting to eat her body. The thing is, it's so sad because he didn't do anything. But it's like, I don't really blame Kevin Carter. He may have been a victim of his own whiteness in a way. But really, who gave that award? It just makes you wonder. Anyway, now look at that picture of the girl on the left. And then on the right, you have pictures of the Jews in the camps in Europe, in Germany, I believe, Auschwitz, if I'm not wrong. And now both of them have been subjected to harsh weather and working conditions with no food. Now, look at compare. I think it's sad. Nobody deserves to die like that. Not, especially, no. No one deserves to die this way. I think it's a painful way to die. So, but the truth is, but let's just stay on track. Anyway, Lamentations 5:10. Now, pick out the skin that you think is black like an oven. Or burnt like an oven in terms of, and this is a picture of famine, And then you have the second picture again, on the left you have victims of, the torture camps in Europe. And you have the picture of kids who are going through famine in Africa. But, pick out, just when you look at it, in fact, the skins look paler. Now, if this were the people who wrote the Bible, something's wrong if they express themselves as having black skins. Something's wrong. Oh, that would be a mental illness. Now, then you have Acts 29:38. Now, this is when Paul was arrested. Paul was a Hebrew. They say Jew, but Hebrew. They say, aren't you the Egyptian who led a rebellion some time ago and took 4,000 members of the assassins into the wilderness? But Paul answered, I am a Jew. I am a Hebrew from Tarsus in Cilicia, a citizen of no ordinary city. Now, note that Paul was confused for an Egyptian. What is it about Paul that made him look primarily Egyptian? I'm going to give you pictures of Egyptians and tell me what you think. What color was Paul? another example of, trying to find the persona. Okay, let's see who the persona is over here in the book of Songs of Solomon. 1:5. I am black and lovely, O daughters of Jerusalem, like the tents of Kedar, like the curtains of Solomon. Do not stare at me because I am swarthy. Swarthy means dark skinned. Okay, and right there, right there, a picture of. I put a picture of the tents of Kedar. They were made of goat skin, and when it rained, it became like a full adhesive in a sense against the rain. Now, if you see those tents, they are black as black can be in terms of black or brown African sense. So, I don't know how people would tell me that they're symptomatic scholars, yet they don't even symptomatically make that common sense of saying that the Bible could never have been written by a white person. And it would be a mental problem if white people wrote the Bible, because there's references to them being black more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times. Now, in my journey of research in trying to compare Hebrew and Mdu Ntrr, now whenever I give out a word and I say these are the core vocabularies, I won't say core vocabulary, but I'll say these are the comparisons of why I think that Mdu Ntrr is the Bantu language. The primary question I've been asked, is it scientific? What is the scientific comparison? Anyway, now somebody else accused me of, just because languages look alike, it could be boring, it could be a false, the making of a false prototype. A false prototype. So, anyway, first of all, if you're going to talk about a false prototype, or assuming that just because I got core vocabularies that were related and I grouped the languages together, and I'm grouping them together based on association, but you're still going to question my scientific methods and say it's a false prototype, I find it absurd, because when you, especially having been there, you didn't grow up, in an African land. You grew up in an African land. You speak English as your first language. I mean, no offense, this person is African American, and they told me this, and they call themselves a scholar. Okay, you speak English as a first language. I speak, my first languages are Ekegusii and then Swahili. Okay, so Ubuntu by that right is mother and father. Now, if you're a scholar whose mother tongue is English, then by that right, English is mother and father. And intertwined in being mother and father are the ideologies and perceptions of racism, white supremacy. I don't even know how one can possibly, especially being that you speak one language, having spoken that language that is an isolative language, I don't know how many of those Western scholars will come with absolutism and claim that, they own, the right to the African knowledge. Now, when you tell somebody that, that whatever they come up with is a false prototype, then you are in essence assuming to be the infallible panacea to understanding the real prototype. How do you know? I mean, what makes you think you can say false? Based on what terms? European terms? But yet I'm speaking African language. How can you even tell me that that's a false prototype? What do you know about speaking a second energy language? Now, in my defense, okay, for those who've come up with the false prototype theories, okay, in my research I have come across words, okay, that come from another language, but when it's transported onto another language, it goes back to its primary, proto-Bantu form, almost. Okay, and I'll show you an example. Okay, now, here's the word. Okay, the word for teacher in Swahili is walimu. Okay, teachers is walimu, right? However, now teacher comes from the word alimu. Alimu in Swahili is one with, excess experience or skill in matters of religion, or a scholar or somebody who's learned. That's alimu. you know, somebody who's exalted in terms of knowledge. Now, walimu is the teacher. Now, in my language, the word for teacher, we don't really have a word for teacher per se. I don't know. But the word, the word for teacher has been born into the Ekegusii language. And the plural in Swahili is walimu, but we don't have W as such. The W is pronounced kind of like go. It's like when you say woman, it's goman. When you say a wound, like a cut, it's a gund. So we don't really have W, a fluid W, okay? So, Ekegusii, I don't know why they take, you know, they just adapt to just how you would code switch languages and code mix. So Aba usually presents children of a patriarch or a group of people. Aba Oba, okay? Walimu or Alimu is exalted or in terms of skill. So in Ekegusii, plural for teachers is Abarimu. See that? Abarimu. Now, this word Abarimu is also identical to the Hebrew word Ba'alim. Ba'alim means masters or husband or teacher. Okay? See that? And I always say that the Ekegusii language is the Hebrew language, because I do believe it's one of the languages that contributed to the Hebrew lingua franca. Okay? So, Abarimu Ba'alim, but it's also identical to the word Abarim, which is a mountain upon which the Israelites were given their promise. So Abarim, so in terms of that sense, Abarim is the mountain of masters, or illumination, or the illuminated mountain of illumination, or mountain of teachers. See that? So Balim, Abarimu, Walimu. Now see how that word has been born and it's been code mixed, but it goes like I promised earlier. I was going to talk about some of, you know, a few words that are found in Ekegusii that are also present in Mdu Ntrr and the Hebrew language. Now, and I'm using again co-vocabulary, okay? Now, the Ekegusii word for writing, to write, to weigh, to measure, or to wrestle, and the concept of age groups and age sets is the word Rika. Okay? Write, weigh, measure, wrestle. Okay? And the concept of Rika in terms of age groups, you know, circumcision, you know, cohorts. Now, that really entails the word Rika. Now, in the Egyptian language, and this is a book by E.A. Wallace Badge, and he talks about when Ramesses II wanted to dispatch a magician priest to drive out the devil from his wife's sister in Bekten, he summoned his officials and told them to produce not only a rekichet, that is one who knew things of magic, but a priest who was trained in mind and whose fingers, now pay attention, that fingers were instructed in writing, and in the manipulation of magical instruments, and who was an associate or scribe in the house of life. Okay, now let's look at the word rekichet. Now, considering, now look at the consonant RKH, okay, in the Ekegusii language is Rika. Now, the instrument or the rod, okay, het is a rod, okay, and I'll put the hieroglyphs right there where you can see them. So het is a rod in Mdu Ntrr. Now rek is to write, rik is to write, is to learn. Alright? Now when you have rekichet, somebody who uses a stick to write, okay, so now note this. Racket is somebody who uses a rod. Het is a rod, okay? Gete is a rod in Ekegusii. Just add an e at the end and you get your gete. Rika is right, okay? So now Rika is also to weigh. If you're trying to write something and you're trying to weigh the options or calculate, you can say you are Rika, trying to weigh. So the concept of internalizing information and trying to weigh it out to see what option is better as an answer is the process of Rika. Okay, so in the Ekegusii and Mdu Ntrr, just the same, doesn't change. Okay, so then now with the word predicate, if and in Ekegusii, if you're talking about somebody who uses a stick to write, you would say Morika gete or Morikera gete. He who uses the stick to write. You see that? And this has to do with the concept of using his mind and fingers. One who is trained in his mind and writing. Okay. Now let's move on to the next one. Now I'll also give you, I'll copy paste that. I took a screenshot of kaumati.co.uk, and they talk about the ancient Egyptian language, and they give the hieroglyphs for that, and that's rek or rika. That's RKH, the consonants. Know, to know, to become acquainted, to understand, or to learn. Okay, so while Ekegusii, Rika is to weigh, measure. It's a concept of learning. It's also physically measuring weights. Okay, so it's to measure, it's to understand, it's to wrestle, it's to write, it's to tabulate. That whole idea of Rika, has to the concept of illumination in terms of intellect. Now, Kaumati compares this word to the word elekea in Swahili. Elekea in Swahili, or elekea, is just to head towards the right direction, towards a certain direction, to know or to perceive, or to head towards a certain kind of thinking. Okay? Now you see that Ekegusii word again is consistent with Mdu Ntrr, it's consistent with Ekegusii language. Now, we have more comparisons. Now, you have, now the first one was Raket, which would be the spiritual rod or writing stick, and you have the Rika, which to know, to understand. This is Mdu Ntrr, which is RKH, to know, to understand, to learn, or become acquainted with. Then you have Rika in Ekegusii, meaning to write, to weigh, to measure, or to count, or to wrestle. Now, Moreka in Ekegusii means to illuminate upon or shine upon. Now, if you understand something, or you learn something, or you perceive something, what you can say, you have Moreka upon me. It has illuminated upon me. Okay, it's become illuminated in that sense. Now, Rika in Swahili and Rika in Kikuyu refers to age sets or age groups. Now, the reason why I added that, and it's important that I do, is because unlike Western education, that's a manual system, African system is learning through apprenticeship. Okay, so the Rika was important because if you came from a certain Rika, and this Rika specialized in becoming smelters of gold, then when you got circumcised and you were initiated and taught the secrets of the tribe, you were also given on the knowledge of Rika. In that sense of the Rika, if it's iron smelting, if it's farming or animal husbandry or whatever, was taught through the Rikas. So Rikas represented as set that represented as sort of a formal African education system. Okay. Now, we also have Rika, which is in Arabic, which is a type of calligraphy. Then you have Lika in Hindu Sanskrit, meaning to write, and it comes from the root word to scratch. Now, when you have the word, which is a rod, and then the idea of even, the root words, just like I was talking about using core vocabularies, the root remains the same. Rik and that remains the same. So those of you who are asking about my scientific method or scientific system, it's simple. It's just using, trying to find these agglutination core vocabularies, and the word, even the word Rika, just remains the same. Now, when you had that word as Africa, it was a brown land of illumination or education, and Africa was known for teaching even Grecians, and then the condition was to get circumcised. Now, you see, and that's one example of Mdu Ntrr, and a correlation between the Ekegusii, not only Ekegusii but Swahili. I even connected to the Hindu Sanskrit. Now, with giving prevalence, and preeminence over African languages, in the sense. Now, so we have now, in the same spirit of speaking about Rika and the concept of understanding, now you have the word from which Rika was derived. You have the word Eureka. This is one of the most prolific terms associated with Archimedes. Okay, Archimedes was known to have discovered, gold volume or something like that, using, and he ran out excited because he figured the answer, and he ran out excited, almost naked. Actually, he was naked. He ran out naked and saying, Eureka, Eureka, I have found it, I have found it. Now, think about this. Archimedes was saying, Eureka, I have understood it, I have understood it, I have found the measure, or I have found the math calculation. Okay, now think about this. If Africa opened up its boundaries to educate the Grecians, now, and the Grecians were also a very mixed race, and they mixed with many other tribes, African tribes. I argue the Luo, I argue the Medians, or the Medians, the Kalenjins, Bantus as well. They were a highly mixed race of children, as well as the Ishmaelites. Now, how are you going to have Archimedes come out on the street and say that Archimedes, because he ran out naked, then he discovered the density of pure gold, and he, using his bathtub water, because he found that it was pure gold, it would be of equal mass or whatever. Now, how do you have these liars telling us that Archimedes discovered that density of pure gold, runs the streets saying Eureka, but he's speaking an African language and using an African measurement, which is Ekegusii says Rika for weighing or to measure. You see how these lies have just been carried on and carried on? And where did he learn the Rika system anyway? How about the nomads that dealt with gold and dealt with the Rika system? How about us Ekegusii who dealt with a Rika system, and we even have a name for gold? How is that possible that he's running out speaking a Greek? He's the one who brought, civilization in terms of mass and gold density. This was a lie. They lie. When was Eureka a Grecian concept? Since when? Oh God, that's a lie. These people are colossal liars. I mean, those guys need to go to Guinness Book and get, win awards for the best lies ever crafted in history. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, this, ladies and gentlemen, introducing the Great White Delusion. This is your classic, quintessential Greco-Roman romanticism. Talking about how they came up with all these things in civilization, just a Great White Delusion. The typical, white prototype that we're supposed to look up to, that no one has ever seen. It's crazy. But we've all ingested these lies one way or another. So even as we move on, I still got more for you. So next would be connecting Ekegusii to ancient Hebrew. Okay. Okay, now the ancient Hebrew, you know, in Ekegusii. Now you have, for example, I'll just pick a verse, you know, a verse from Psalm 23. Okay, in tracing, you know, now the second example I'm giving you is an example of Ekegusii in ancient Hebrew. Now, sorry, ancient Hebrew in Ekegusii. So now here you go. So he has Psalm 23 verse 1. This is just a sentence I'm picking from Ekegusii, but there's so many others, and as we go by, maybe as you know, as I record more, I'll tell you more. But there's so many others, you know, so many other, you know, parallels that I found. So now you have the words Nyasai no morision tinkoremerwa. Now that's Ekegusii. That means the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalm 23:1. Okay, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Nyasai no morisione tinkoremerwa. Okay, Nyasai is God. Okay, Nyasai is equivalent to the Hebrew word Yeshaya. God is my salvation. It's still a name for God. It's God who has the attribute of being a savior. Yeshaya, Nyasai, still names of God. Okay. Now, of course, no more means he is. Now, let's move over to the word Risi or Risia. Risia comes from, Risia means a shepherd, or the word for a priest in the Ekegusii, or a pastor. Now, moving on to pastor. Now, in the Hebrew language, the word, it comes from the root word resh. Resh means a head or a headman, or first, or top, or beginning. Okay, so Resh actually represents a leader. Morisi, he who guides me into that pasture. Yeshaya would be stand for Yesai, which is all names of God. Then you have Morisi. Morisi is rooted from the word Resh or Rishi or Rish in that sense, because it means a leader, a headman, a first or top or beginning. So that's why in Ekegusii a shepherd is called Morisi, rooted in the Hebrew word Resh. And Resh, Shin, Sin, Tav. So I guess that's the third last, you know, it's the third last, or, you know, Resh is the third last of, you know, the Hebrew alphabet, and it means leader. So then, in terms of even the word Rishi, Morisi, Ekegusii is a shepherd, you have, you know, Giriama language, a shepherd, Mreza, because Reza is grazing, and then you have Rishi. You know, in Hindu, Rishi is a sage, a leader, religious leader as well. And then you have Riachi. Riachi means a fish, okay? But it implicitly means to the Ekegusii people a firstborn. The Ekegusii firstborn was called Riachi, which means a fish, a leader. And then you have Rishon. Rishon is a, you know, from which the word for leader, you know, is derived from. Rishon, firstborn, Rishon. Okay, so, you know, the word is contained in Ekegusii, Rishi is contained in Ekegusii from the root word Resh, contained in Hebrew, and then you can find it in other languages, and, you know, the disparity goes on. Now, Remerwa comes from the root word Rema or Remu. Okay, this is a word that exists in diametrical opposites. Rema, Remu, or Lema, or Lemu, because Ekegusii does not have R. So we replace L with R. Now, Lema in Swahili, Lema means to outshine in terms of skill or knowledge, or, you know, durability, in that sense, Lema. Now, however, the word Lema, double A would imply lameness, and it's from which the English word lame was derived from. In Ekegusii, the word lame is kerema. So kerema, lema, all mean lameness. In English, Ekegusii, and all this in the Hebrew language. And I say this in the sense that remia, from which remerwa comes now, with the root word is remorma. Now, the other side, the diametrical opposite of lameness is strength, okay? So, let me not get mixed up, because, so it has two roots, rem or rema, both of which it can either mean positive or negative, depending on how you say it, or how you pronounce it. Now, in my language, Ekegusii, remu is peace, but rema is lameness. Okay? So it's a word that produces two roots. It can either be good wholeness or lameness. Okay? Now, then you have the word rimia in Ekegusii is to switch off or put out, okay, as a light, okay, which is a variation of the Hebrew word remia. Remia means to slacken, deceit, laxness, or slackness. Now, if you are a whole person and your leg becomes remia, becomes slack, what does that mean? Become kerema, right? Hebrew word remia means to become slack, so it can imply lameness. It's from here that I get the word remerwa, from the word. Now, the way it's been used here in Ekegusii, in the sign of Mauricio, I think remerwa, it means I will not be found inadequate or lacking or not whole, in that sense. Okay? Same derivation as Hebrew and Ekegusii, same derivation, and you also have the same kind of lexical terms used, using root words, root words that can stand independently. Again, the lexical terms. Now, it's from that word. Now, speaking of that word, rem, remia, from the root word rem or rema. Now, look at this, okay? I'll show you the derivation of the name Jerusalem or Jerusalem, okay? Now, of course, J or Ye would represent, it's, Yahweh. Then you have Rusa or Rusha. Now, Rusa is permission, okay, in Swahili. Or rest, Rusa. Rusia in Ekegusii is to emit or to flow out, okay, Rusia, okay, Rusia. That which of God, that which removes, okay, or that which emits. And then you have Shalem, okay, which is Shalem in Hebrew, which would mean wholeness, safe, peaceful, and damaged or complete. That's Shalem, okay, which is comparable to the Swahili word Salama. So it can be Jerusalema, Jerusalama, in that sense. Place of peace, place of comfort, place of wholeness. However, when you say Salama or Shalem, you're actually, the word Sa or Sha represents a life force or a place. Okay, so, but a lem or lem is the real root for the word peace. Lem or lama, in that sense. Okay, because lama also is a Swahili word to show that lema is a Swahili word to show that something is outstanding in terms of its strength or durability. Okay, now Boremu in Ekegusii would mean lameness, okay, or inadequacy, or not whole, disabled. Kilema would mean the same in Swahili. Lema is the condition of lameness in Swahili as well. Lame, of course, you know what lame means in English. Then you have lema, L-E-M-A. Now, look how this comes in Swahili. Lema, disability, but lema is to stand out in terms of skill or durability, meaning hold, strong, powerful. Now, remove in my language is peace, or it can mean strength, or it can be hard. You know, somebody who's tough. So you can tell somebody their melody means, be tough, be tough, be tough. So Jerusalem is the place that emits toughness, strength, tranquility, peace, place of comfort, place of strength. Not only Ekegusii, not only Swahili, not only the Hebrew language, and these are all agglutinations. I mean, it's crazy. Now, if they're using Hebrew to record Mdu Ntrr is a Bantu language, then what kind of language is the Hebrew language? Is it like the proverbial bat that's neither, the proverbial bat that's neither a bird or a mammal? Or is somebody trying to make the structure of the Hebrew language be Semitic? Because it's not Semitic. It should exist outside of the Semitic language. But, okay, that's another story for another day. Now, then we move on. Then you have the Swahili word alam or maalim, meaning one who is excessively knowledgeable, and it's a name also used for a teacher or religious leader. And then now you go to Yoruba. See how alam and alim all mean excessively knowledgeable or place of strength or stability. Now look at the word aremu. Aremu is used for, in Yoruba, is used for male firstborn. Okay, the firstborn was that, like Jacob, when he was blessing his children, he said, Reuben, you are my vigor and the strength of my youth. Okay, so firstborns, are always the strength, the strength of their parents' youth. So in that sense, when you look at the name Aremu is derived from the word Rema Remu, place of peace or strength. Yoruba. Now, look at the word Aremu. Now, let's look at the word Absalom. Absalom and Aremu are the same name. No joke. All given to firstborns. Now, Absalom has the root word, has the root word Ab, meaning, father of or patriarch. But usually when you find the word now, Absalom is also very characteristic to West African naming systems. Now, look at the word Aremu and look at the word Absalom. Okay, one is Aremu, one is Alom when it comes to the suffix. And AB, a B or a Ba is a very characteristic way, again, in West Africa. And even with Yorubas, where they say Abiola, Oba, Abi, is a very, very African way of naming. Now, if you have Ab and you have Sa to represent place or life force, and Alom, and this is the name that was given to Absalom, who was the firstborn. Absalom was so good looking, and his hair would grow so long, it was so heavy, it would have to be cut every year. Okay, so Absalom not only stood out, as the firstborn, meaning just like the Swahili word lema, to stand out, stand out in terms of skill or durability. The Swahili word lema with one A is, it's really the same as the word Absalom or Alom or Aremu. Those are the prefixes. It's just the phonetic conversion, same thing. Okay, his hair was so heavy and his cue was so handsome, and he stood out as a firstborn even in terms of strength. Okay, he thought he was so powerful that he wanted to topple his father in terms of leadership. So he, in fact, embodied his name in terms of looks, in terms of even organization. Now, examine the name Salim or Salima, meaning peace. Okay, peaceful one. Derived from Swahili as well as Arabic, because Salama in Swahili means safe. Now, if you have, he gives, Sharma gives this example. He says agglutination does not occur in Afro-Asiatic languages. If one examines the Semitic Arabic language, the root is an abstract notion which consists of consonants. As an example, by inserting the vowels ALA in the template SLM, we obtain Salima, which means he was at peace, while Salama means being at peace. Okay, So he uses the word Salama or Salima to express, you know, how Afro-Asiatic languages are different from Bantu or Mdu Ntrr. In